Okay, I'm off my phone, ready to get back to work. Let's get organized. Make sure you understand your assigned duties and create a plan to get them done. This is helpful. It's not required, but it's a good idea. Maybe if you have a number of things you have to get done every day, get a little notepad down, write down what you have to do, and put a line through it when you're done. Okay, the simplest tricks oftentimes are the most effective. Consider your clients' preferences and needs, and try to build your schedule around them. When are they most susceptible to or receptive to doing things? Maybe first thing in the morning, maybe late at the night. Maybe they'd like to go out in the afternoons. Maybe they take a nap at a certain time of day, and not a good idea to schedule things for that time of day. Kind of pick and choose and figure things out based on what you know. Do similar tasks together. That way you're not going back and forth doing the same thing. Like if they're going to fold laundry, you're going to do the laundry. If they're going to wash dishes, you're going to cook. That sort of thing. Plan more than enough time for each task. That way you keep some flexibility in your schedule for unforeseen things that may come up. Remember, supporting their independence, safety, and well-being is your most important duty. So in all things, the schedule is important, but the client always will come first. Okay? All right, let's jump over to page 92 now. Getting ready for work. Preparing yourself mentally and physically for work each day will help you do your job well. Presenting yourself as a professional will give clients and your employer confidence in your abilities. Okay? You are perceived how you present yourself. That's the best way of putting it. The way you put yourself out there is the way people will perceive you. Are people supposed to judge you based on your looks, based on your hairstyle, based on the shirt you wear, based on the shoes you're wearing? They're not supposed to, but they do. Everybody does. Everyone judges everybody based on what they see. It's the first thing that people use to make a judgment about somebody. Once they get to know someone, then it matters less and less and less how they actually look or appear or wear or dress or whatever, because you know the person. But if you're all about making first impressions, it's going to be how you dress is how they'll perceive you. For example, your hair. Keep your hair neat, clean, pulled back out of your face. Don't have it all falling in your face and shaggy and dirty or whatever. Make sure your jewelry doesn't get in the way of doing things when you're performing care tasks. So don't wear anything overly complicated. Large rings with big stones that snag on gloves, or bracelets or hoopy things that dangle, or necklaces that are really long and complicated that can get tangled if you're trying to help a client get transferred from bed to wheelchair. Use good common sense when it comes to what you're wearing to your shifts, especially in terms of jewelry. With shoes, obviously wear shoes that are sensible for work. Shoes that will let you stay on your feet for a while. Shoes that'll make sure that you don't slip and fall when you're walking in, potentially slippery areas. And shoes that give you good stability. So, if you're trying to help someone else not fall, you're not also going, whoop, oh, these high heels aren't the right job for, that kind of thing. As far as clothing goes, dress how you like to dress. Unless your agency has a policy that you have to wear a certain type of uniform to work, or scrubs, or jeans, or slacks, or whatever. If they have a policy, then they should be completely upfront and honest about it when they're hiring you and letting you know this is how we expect you to dress. But for the most part, in the care setting, clients will prefer that you dress comfortably and sensibly, but not necessarily medically. Especially if you're going out and doing outings with the clients. They don't want to feel like they're going out with their nurse. They don't want people to look at them and go, oh, that person has a nurse walking around with them. Just dress like you normally would in comfortable, sensible attire. Just use good common sense with that. But again, defer to your agency or employer's policy if there is one. As far as perfume goes, they pretty much just say don't wear it. For the most part, most people aren't going to have too much of a problem with a little light perfume, but there's enough people that it's definitely worth not doing without making sure that it's not going to be met with any resistance. You know what I'm saying? And then with your nails, keep them clean, keep them smooth. Don't have like grit and dirt underneath them, or sharp edges that can scratch the client when you're trying to help them move from one place to another. And that kind of piggybacks on the hygiene thing. Shower, bathe, clean yourself, wear deodorant, make sure your hair is clean, make sure you're not smelling bad, okay? If you're not sure if you smell bad, ask somebody, okay? Because you've stood behind that person in line, haven't you? That clearly did not know they didn't smell good, because no one told them they didn't smell good, okay? And if you're not sure, ask somebody. Don't guess, because sometimes we can't smell ourselves. You know what I'm saying? All right. Oh, did the video start? I think it did. Yep, there we go. We're good. Okay, so that being said, touched on that. Let's talk about professional boundaries now. A professional boundary is basically just like a limitation that you should be putting on your relationship with your client. It doesn't mean that you don't talk about anything personal, but it also says you don't talk about everything personal. You put some limitations on things. You set limits to the conversation where you're not going to be talking about one particular thing for too long or getting too in depth about it. And these boundaries can change the longer you know somebody. Okay? Clear boundaries can help you set a safe, trusting, and ethical connection with the client, both on their end and yours. Sometimes they'll want to share things with you, and you'll be like, I don't think that's an appropriate conversation to talk about with me. Especially clients who are younger or clients who have boundary issues. They can tell you something, and then later they'll go to someone else and say, I talked about this and this and that with my caregiver, and they said this and this and this. And they may say that you said something that you didn't say. And then suddenly people are going to you like, why did you tell them that? Why did you, what place do you think you have to give them advice about their politics or their sex life or their religion or whatever? You see what I'm saying? So it's not always a great idea to get into really intimate details of conversation with your clients. And that's why those boundaries exist. Okay? Establishing clear boundaries from the very beginning will help things immensely. Leaving things ambiguous and open means that they're going to feel like they can talk to you about it at some point. Maybe not now, but it's something that's on the table for a future discussion. So if no is no, just list it as no and make sure that no stays no. And it doesn't go, well, maybe one day or maybe later. Just let no be no. And don't be afraid of saying no. Okay? No. All right, over to page 93 now. Over to page 93. In addition to the boundaries, you want to be keeping physical and emotional distance between you and your client. What does that mean? Well, don't be hugging them excessively. I know sometimes your client may want to give you a hug, especially the ones that don't have clear boundary setting mechanisms already in place. They may come up to you and say, oh, Alice, and they want to just hug you. I haven't seen you in forever and stuff like that. Is it bad to let your client hug you? I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I think that an overindulgence in allowing excessive physical contact can lead to some misunderstandings and some problems. So as a general rule, I would say keep the physical contact to a minimum. And again, only what's reasonable and necessary to provide care, but also be a human being. You can shake hands, give high fives, give a hug once in a while. It's not bad, but just be cautious and be mindful of the fact of people's perception of things that can go on. Okay? You don't want people thinking wrong things about you. Now, you do need to be careful about what you say and do to establish clear boundaries. So piggybacking on what I said earlier, personal problems should be off the plate. Don't mention those. Private arrangements for services, like, hey, when I'm off the clock, I'll do this for you if you give me some cash on the side. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're being paid by the state to provide care. Now, if they're already paying you by the hour from their own pocket to provide care, that one's a little more gray area, because then it's like, well, they're already paying me and they want me to stay late tonight for an extra $20, that's kind of up to you. But if you're being paid by the state, not the client, then these rules are pretty much better to stick to. Don't take tips or gifts or money from the client or their family. Don't borrow or lend money. Don't borrow their car or their phone or anything like that. Keep the gossiping obviously out of there, and don't be talking about them in front of other people, gossiping or whispering or things like that. There's going to be times when the client wants to give you a gift, when they want to give you money, when they want to give you a Starbucks gift card, or they want to buy lunch for you or something like that. And that, again, is something that it's like policy says you shouldn't be doing those things. Okay? And I'm going to tell you on the record, you shouldn't be doing those things. But I'm also going to tell you on the record that sometimes you're a human being. And sometimes someone wants to give you a gift, and it's Christmas, and they got you something nice, and it means something to them, and they want to give you a little gift just to show their appreciation. Okay? You always at first decline. If they insist, don't be mean about it. Just accept the gift and then let your supervisor or your case manager know that happened, so that it's above board, everyone knows it happened, and that there's no quid pro quo, like, oh, I gave you this, now you have to do this for me. So, all right, think about that. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. All right, so let's now discuss a few warning signs, okay? These are things that it's like, did I violate a boundary? Let's see if this tells us if we violated a boundary or not. So a lot of caregivers can find it challenging to keep those professional boundaries with their clients. And it's natural to develop emotional reactions and attachments to people because, like I said, we're human beings, okay? We're going to feel something for these people that we're working with, okay? We're not supposed to feel love and attraction and desire, but you're going to feel some semblance of an emotional connection with them, like you care about them. It's only natural. If you find yourself spending your free time with your client, that could be a problem because then you're going beyond just caring about them and you're now befriending them and creating a personal, not professional attachment with them. If you're sharing personal information, talked about that, giving maybe special attention to one client over another, that's never a good idea. Equality is the key here. Keeping secrets with them or from them, or taking gifts or money from them, or their family, anything like that, okay? And as I said before on the next page where it says, if they attempt to give you a gift, you kindly and firmly refuse, and then if you just accept the gift or you can't get out of it, then just let your supervisor know. And typically there won't be any consequences to that. They'll just make a little note that happened, and that way later, if there's some kind of problem, they didn't show up to work today, and I gave them a $20 Starbucks gift card, and I want my gift card back because they're a bad caregiver. Well, then, you know what? You're probably going to have to give them back the gift card or give them back $20 or something. I mean, it's a stupid shame, but that's how it kind of works. That's why they don't advise you to give gifts in the first place, because gifts given place you in some form of obligation to the person because you're being paid to be there already. You shouldn't be receiving more gifts to be there. You're not like a waiter getting tips. You know what I mean? And so when they do that, they do it normally from a place of goodness. They do it from a place of care and love and from the heart. But the problem is that later, if something goes wrong, then all that stuff that they did for you out of the goodness of their heart turns into emotional blackmail. And then now they're saying that you have to give them these things back, or you owe them something different, or who knows, it's better to just stay away from it wherever you can. Okay, professional speaking, as someone who's been doing this for a long time, I've heard the stories and I know what happens. All right, maintaining boundaries. Part of your job each day is to maintain your professional boundaries. Okay, that's not just the clients, it's your boundaries. So ask yourself if your words or behavior are professional and appropriate. And if you think you're getting too personally involved, adjust your behavior before it gets too late. And if you think you're in too deep and you think you've gotten, I did this, I did that, and I did that, and I shouldn't have done those things, don't just sweep them under the rug and hide them, because then they just get worse and they can be used against you later. Let your supervisor know. Let your agency know. Let somebody on the care team who's a trusted individual know that, hey, I messed up. I need to let someone know about it, so maybe we can fix this. Okay, it's going to look a lot better for you than, I didn't want to tell anyone because I thought I'd get in trouble. Because then it just looks like you got caught, and you never would have said anything if you hadn't gotten caught. You see what I'm saying? It's perception. All right, let's flip over to page 94 now. And we'll talk about preparing and responding to emergencies, because they could happen. Emergencies do happen. Some ways to protect their client safety and health. It is a daily priority, and the best ways you can do it, we got a little 1, 2, 3, 4 thing here again. One is just practice good safety habits that prevent the accidents, because 100% of the accidents that you prevent don't become emergencies. So if you can keep them from happening. Now, can we stop all the accidents? Of course we can't. Accidents are going to happen because you don't have control over other people's behavior. Or you don't have control over walking through your living room at 3 a.m. and one of your kids left a toy on the floor and you step on it and you trip over it. You have no control over that. It's going to happen. Okay? But we do our best. Follow up on concerns or problems. So if you see something that you're like, ooh, that's going to be a problem, and I can't solve it because I don't really have any authority over this situation. Like, for example, your client has a damaged portion of their house and there's electrical wires exposed and showing. Now, you're not an electrician, and you're probably not the type of person that would know how to, rewrap electrical wiring or splice it and cut it and redo. I don't even know how to do half of these things with electrical stuff. So the point is that maybe you see a problem that could be a much worse problem if it's not treated, but you can't deal with it yourself, can you? So make sure you're reporting that. Secondly, recognize symptoms of health emergencies and respond appropriately, and prepare for fires, natural disasters, and other emergencies, tornadoes, earthquakes, whatever you got. Okay. Just kind of keep it in the back of your mind that emergencies can occur and you should be ready for them. Now, ways you can prevent accidents: keep walkways clear. Keep dangerous items stored away so they don't fall off a shelf or someone little grabs them and pulls them down onto them. Take precautions to prevent falls and burns and electric shock. And there's actually a little checklist for home safety that's in the resource directory that we'll go over later. And that details some good safety tips. Okay? Now, following up on concerns, as I said, that's when you're going to report things to the case managers or the care team and write those reports. Document why you're concerned, and then maybe even document what you advise to do based on what you know about the situation. And maybe they'll take up your advisement. There's a couple of examples here. Example A and example B. Okay? There's, just some examples of ways you can do this. I'll let you read those on your own. But let's go over to page 95 now, and we're going to talk about responding to a medical emergency, because that's important too. Call 911 right away if you have a client experiencing any of these following medical emergencies. If they're bleeding and it doesn't stop. If they're having trouble breathing, shortness of breath. And I don't mean like a normal shortness of breath, like they just got done running and they're wheezing and trying to catch their breath and everything. Okay, give them a second to catch their breath. But if it's time's going by and they're not catching it, then yeah, that might be a 911 situation. Changes in their mental status, like if they're doing something real unusual for them, or they're not responding the way they normally would. Maybe they're drowsy or they're sleepy and they're just not waking up. They're not responding. Hey, nope, nothing. Chest pain, especially like unexplained chest pain or chest pain that's getting worse. They're choking, obviously. You don't want to deal with this as well, but choking. Or coughing up or vomiting blood, that's a bad sign. Fainting or loss of consciousness. You don't just faint out of the blue. Something's wrong if you're fainting. Or like a spine or head injury, or having a mental health crisis even. We're not even talking physical at this point. Maybe they're having a mental health crisis. They're threatening themselves. They're threatening you, someone else. Again, vomiting, lots of fun vomiting in this one. Severe sudden pain in the body where they just suddenly get sharp pain and they don't know what it is or why it's coming on, and especially if it persists for more than a few minutes. Dizziness, weakness, drinking poison, or a severe upper abdominal pain or pressure. These are just a list of things, but by no means the entire list. So again, use good judgment, and when in doubt, what the heck? Call 911. Let somebody else show up and deal with it. In worst case scenario, it was nothing. Sorry, best case scenario, it's nothing. And you call them for nothing, and they go, well, good thing you checked on it just to be sure. Right? Now, what happens if your client tells you, don't call 911? Uh-oh. Well, what if they have a bleeding wound? They cut themselves real bad. I mean real bad. Like in the kitchen, they cut themselves real bad. And it's bleeding really heavily, and they wrapped it up in a paper towel, and they said, don't worry about it, I'm fine, it'll stop bleeding. And it's been 15 minutes, and they've gone through about 19 changes of that paper towel, it's still bleeding. And they're like, I'm gonna go sit down for a minute, I'll feel better if I just sit down. And then you're like, I'm calling there, don't you call 911, I don't want those stupid paramedics here messing up my house and clomping their muddy boots in my house. But no, I'll be fine, I've cut myself a million times, it'll heal, don't worry. You see, some people are going to be like that. Some people don't want you to call 911 because they don't want to be bothered or bother, or they don't want to admit that they need help. Okay? Let me tell you right now, if it's a situation where you feel you should call 911, call 911. I don't care if the client's mad at you. It's better they're mad at you than they're in the hospital or dead because you didn't. Think about that one. So, all right, take a break, think about some other 911 sort of related things, and we'll get back here in just a minute. Now, another emergency that we like to kind of emphasize is the heart attack, of course. Knowing warning signs of the heart attack. You see the little diagram there at the middle of the page 95? The vomiting, the dizziness, pain, shortness of breath, nausea, cold sweat, chest pain, arrhythmia. Any of these things can be a normal side effect of a medication, exercise, maybe poor diet, maybe just eating something wrong. So there's a lot of things that can be confused for a heart attack, but also a heart attack can be mistaken for other things as well. So know to look for these signs. Don't always assume that these signs mean it's a heart attack. But if you think your client is at risk for a heart attack, or maybe their care plan says they're at risk, or they've had a heart attack before, and they start showing these signs, then I would definitely assume that, you know what, let's err on the side of caution and call. Okay? If they're having 2 or more of these symptoms, then maybe, we should call, because 2 or more symptoms, especially unrelated ones, like if they have nausea and vomiting, that doesn't necessarily mean they have a heart attack. But if they have chest pain and nausea, or if they're breaking out into a cold sweat and they're having shortness of breath, that could certainly be a heart attack. So when you get like 2 of these together, that's when you're starting to feel like, maybe it's time to give that, call those people. Also, strokes. They're very similar to heart attacks in terms of like the side effects that you may see, but they have some other unique side effects to them. Okay, you've got the one where they get blurred vision. They may be talking about their vision's getting blurry. They can't see really well. The face starts to droop, which is, you'll see it. It'll be like, whoa, what's going on there? Let's see. Their speech. They'll start having difficulty speaking. That's another one that normally isn't a heart attack one, but is a stroke one. And just a lot of like confusion, overall confusion. Because remember, the stroke is affecting the brain, not the heart. It's affecting the brain. So if you start to see some weird behavior patterns, and you see some of these symptoms, these heart attack or stroke symptoms mixed with it, it's time to call 911. All right, all good. Let's flip over to 96 now. What do we got in 96? Fire, preparing for fire and natural disasters. Emergencies can happen at any time. You have very little control over, and especially a natural disaster. But medical emergencies, fire, earthquakes, flood, and power outage, give some thought to how you would handle these types of things, right? So important to think about that. Now, if an emergency happens, you could be the only person that can provide help or get help. You're going to be the one who's in the client's home most of the time. And when there's an emergency that happens, well, you're probably going to be the one that has to deal with it in some way. Adult family homes, enhanced services facilities, and assisted living facilities have plans in place. Normally, they're going to have policies and procedures. If this happens, do this. If this happens, do that. If that happens, call these people. Report this, report this, report this. So they should have a plan in place. And as part of your hiring process with whomever it is you worked for, they should have gone over these policies and procedures with you. This doesn't help you too much if you're somebody who works for an individual that there's no service plan for and no care team for other than you. Getting paid cash under the table, cash in hand, cash contract, whatever. So in those cases, you have to be more independent. You have to basically know what emergencies the client has a tendency towards risk towards and know what steps to take. You can get this information from a number of resources and places. There is some data in the back of the book as well, like I said, that explains things that you can do. But also there's plenty of available resources online that can explain to you how to prepare for certain emergencies. So utilize those. If you support a client with your own home, make sure you're talking to them about their own emergency procedures that they have in place. Normally, people who live by themselves, they have a pretty good idea of like, if there's a fire, here's the fire extinguisher. If there was an earthquake, here's where we would hide, things like that. The service plan should include information about this as well. I think it should. Most service plans are pretty good and they should have the information. But I mean, really, top of page 96, be ready for emergencies. Be ready. The planning ahead and knowing how to respond to the fire is important to you and the client's safety because you need to know how to get to safety if there's a problem, just like it's important for your client to get to safety, isn't it? Yeah. If there's a fire, you want to race. Race. R-A-C-E. If there's a fire, you want to rescue, which is removing everyone from the immediate vicinity. Get everybody out of there. Everyone you can, within reason. You want to alarm. And alarming is where you basically let people know, yo, there's a fire. Yell it, scream it, hit some pots and pans together, whatever you have to do, but make sure everybody in earshot who might be in danger from this fire knows about it. Confine the area. Best thing you can do at a fire before you get out of there is close any windows or doors, because the less oxygen that fire has, the slower it's going to spread. Okay? Drastically spread slower with less oxygen to consume. It's crazy the difference. I don't know if you've ever met or talked to any firefighters, but they'll tell you stories of the difference between an open door and a closed door in a fire situation. And then finally, if it's extinguishable, put it out. I mean, there's nothing that says that you, as a competent, capable human being, can't extinguish a fire. There's a difference between a cooking fire on a stovetop and the couch. The couch is on fire. You know what I'm saying? A big difference between these two concepts. One should be something you can manage. You can get a pot lid and put it down over the fire, thus cutting off the oxygen supply, and the fire goes out. You know, don't use water in cooking fires. We all know that. Remember, oil and water don't mix. But cutting off oxygen does. Also, don't hit the fire with a towel. I've seen people do this. I'm like, what the heck are you doing? That's the first thing you do when you want to make a fire get bigger, is you feed it oxygen. And then you whack it with a towel, and now the towel's on fire, and you burn your hand and you throw the towel somewhere because you just burned yourself. Now you have two separate fires. Do not hit it with a towel. If you want to do anything with the towel, quickly run to the sink, get the towel wet, then put the towel down over the fire so it smothers it. Okay? Just lay it down over the fire and let it go out. Even if the fire happens to burn through the towel, it's still going to be a less of a fire than it was before you laid that towel down. If the fire's too big to put out with a decent sized bath towel, then it's probably too big for you to put out, unless you have a fire extinguisher or something really designed to put a fire out. But, you know, use good common sense in a pinch and do your best to put the fire out if you can, as long as it doesn't put you or anybody else at risk or danger. All right, over to page 97. 97. So, depending on where in the country you live, we living in Washington, we barely ever see temperatures above 90 degrees, do we? I don't know when you're watching this video, but assuming we're not going through a heat wave, you guys will definitely, understand what I'm saying here. Most of the time in Washington State, it's kind of in the 50s or 60s. It's very seldom goes above that, at least in the decade or so I've been living here. So, severe heat's not too big of an issue that we wrestle with here in Washington, but we certainly have days where the temperature does climb. And you do hear about it in the news that deaths do occur from these heat incidents. More importantly, when people get left in cars in hot environments, or people get left inside of houses that are shut up with no heat, with no ventilation and no cooling system, then it's a little more dangerous. And even people like in the high 70s and 80s could get overheated. So you have to make sure that you know how to help people stay cool. Okay? When it's hot outside, stay inside, but keep things well ventilated if they don't have central air, which a lot of houses in Washington State don't have central air, I've noticed. But keep people inside. It's still cooler inside than it is outside. Keep shades, blinds, and curtains closed during the day, because you want to have the windows open for airflow, but the blinds closed, okay, to keep the sunlight out. Okay, sunlight does heat up the surfaces. Use AC and use fans if you can. Make sure they're wearing loose, lightweight, light-colored clothes. Take a cool shower. Take a cool bath if they're feeling like they're getting overheated. Maybe they're getting a little bit of a temperature. Encourage people to rest. Don't use the oven to cook. Feed them cool things as opposed to hot things whenever possible. And, cool cloths soaked in cool water on the back of the neck, the wrist, the ankles, areas of high blood flow. Cool compresses will help people cool down as well, because they do cool the blood. And the blood is the thing that's warm inside the body that's keeping their body temperature up. Let's see what else. So, and of course, when it's hot, you want to stay hydrated too, right? So make sure they're getting plenty of liquids, lots of fluids, not so much caffeine or alcohol, but good fluids and good fluid intake. And the frozen stuff is nice too. We'll talk more about this one in Module 9 when we talk about nutrition and everything. But yeah, cool, nice liquid things are great for when things are hot. So, all right, I think we'll go ahead and take a break here, or I'll take a break. Turn over to page 98, and we'll resume right from there, talking about symptoms.